Hamstring stretches are a real topic when it comes to a yoga practice. Why is that? Hi, my name is Sandra Carson. I'm with EkhartYoga.com. And in this short tutorial, I'll explain a little bit why the hamstrings are so important, and I'll show you a few poses in which you can safely stretch your hamstrings and have a good alignment in your body. Tight hamstrings show up in the full spectrum of people's lifestyles and movement practices. Both athletes and people that are the so-called couch potatoes or people that work a lot can suffer and do suffer from tight hamstrings. And some of the symptoms of tight hamstrings may not show up actually in the hamstrings, which are in the backs of the legs, but show up as low back pain, show up as tightness in the hip area and then the pelvic area, or even knee pain. So we want to fully engage with the hamstrings and stretch them in a way that's aligned. So we're gonna, I'm gonna show you some poses now. And what is useful to have is yoga blocks, such as these cork blocks. But depending on your range of motion, you actually may need something higher to put your hands on. So a couch or your countertop or a chair would also work. So we'll talk about the height now. So I'm going to use blocks, but you may want to use a chair. So you want to have your feet about hip distance apart, and you can actually, if that feels tight already, you can step them out a little bit more. You want to bend forward at the hips. Like a lot of people tend to bend from the back, and this is where this lower back pain comes in. Over time, obviously. So we want to bend from the hip joint, so you can even place your fingers there, and it's you kind of move your buttocks back so your spine stays straight. You can even place your hand there to make sure that your low back is straight. And you can see my knees are already bending just a little bit, and that's out of habit, I guess. We don't want to, when you keep your knees locked back, then again, you'll bend from the low back again. So you can bend your knees even more, as much as you need to place your hands on the blocks or on your chair back or whatever you're using. What is important to determine that is that you keep your spine straight. Now, as you move forward, the sitting bones lift, and these sitting bones are the two protruding bones at the base of your pelvis, and that's where your three hamstrings are attached. So that will start to pull as you stretch them more deeply. So you really want to keep pressing your buttocks back, and that will stretch your hamstrings. It will also help stretch your glutes, which are tight in a lot of people as well. So that is one way to stretch the backs of the legs. We want to not hang in the hamstrings and hang in the legs like we see so often, where we're just like slouching down like a rag doll, because then all the tension comes into the hamstrings and they tend to grip even more to protect the body from overstretching. So you want to engage your legs as much as possible. We're going to do this in another pose now where you don't need blocks. So come onto all fours. Place your hands about hip distance or a little bit wider if you can't get your full palm on the floor, and spread your fingers evenly. Then walk your knees a little bit behind you, about 10 centimeters. Curl your toes under, and we're going to do the same thing with lifting the sitting bone. So you're going to arch your spine. Now, this may feel a little bit awkward, but you're going to keep your spine like this, and now lift your knees away from the floor. So you're pressing into the hands. Yeah, and there's more weight in the hands. So shift more to your legs. Keep the knees bent, lift up higher. Keep pressing in the hands so the arms are stretching here, but you're moving more weight into your legs. Yeah, knees are bent. If you start to straighten the legs too fast, then you'll start to round and you'll start to move forward. So this pose is downward facing dog, and it's excellent for stretching and warming up the hamstrings. So you keep the knees bent, Lift your buttocks up high. Now we're aligned to stretch the hamstring. So now you can pedal your heels to the floor one by one. And you want to focus on keeping the sitting bones, your buttocks, up and back. So this is the movement. Just slowly stretching the backs of the legs. And you're using actually the fronts of your thighs to press the heels back as well. And that would be a good thing. So all the muscles in the legs are engaged to help stretch the hamstrings. Now, bend both knees again. Lift up higher, so you come higher on your toes. And now, keeping the sitting bones lifted, now start to stretch both heels to the floor. And if you need to take a break in between in this pose, that's totally fine. But this way, you know what to do. So stretching the heels back. You may also feel it in the calf muscles. And there's a fascial link between your calf muscles and your hamstrings. So you're doing your hamstrings a favor, even if you feel it mostly in your calves. Good. Now slowly walk forward. And you can walk your hands back if you get stuck, and slowly come up. And shake out your legs for a moment. And just feel if that has done anything. Now, we just stretched the backs of the legs, but the hamstrings are also attached to the inner lower leg. So tightness also shows up as a restriction in movement with the legs out. So poses that have the legs wide are also good hamstring stretches. So step your feet wide, and rather a little bit wider than a little bit too close together. Yeah, so really wide. And again, we want to bend from the hip joints because the hamstrings are attached here and they go all the way to the lower leg. So we want to get into a nice pure stretch, bending at the hips, and keep your chest lifted. So this lifts, and that keeps your spine straight. Again, as you come deeper, the stretch in your hamstrings will increase. So feel like, is it hard to keep your legs straight? Then bend them a little bit. And bending is always a good option, especially if you feel the stretch in your hamstrings, because that means that you're really targeting those muscles. Place your hands on the floor, or place them on your blocks, or place them on your countertop, wherever you need to, in order to keep your buttocks back and your spine long. Otherwise, you're just going to bring the stretch more into the low back, which can really aggravate your low back pain. Yeah, so walking the hands a little bit forward. Now we're going to do something fun. So you're going to have your hands somewhere supported. Come onto the toes. So you're lifting the heels away from the floor and bend your knees. And now you'll notice that your legs have to work a little bit harder. And that's good. So we want to create an engagement of the legs, the leg muscles, and get into a nice, firm, and deep stretch. So pressing the sitting bones back, heels are lifted, and now slowly with the fronts of your legs, start to press the heels down towards the floor. So you go very slowly. And the moment your heels touch the floor, you press them apart. And unless you're on a very slippery floor with socks on, you're going to feel the resistance of the heels pressing out, bringing a deeper stretch into your hamstrings. Now, ideally, you stay here for at least 8 breaths, and then because then your body will start to release into the stretch a little bit more. So stay in as long as you like, don't overstretch, and then when you're ready, slowly come up and take your feet together. So if you do this a couple of times a week when you have low back pain, just practice it. It doesn't have to be longer than 5 minutes, and see if it works for your low back. And please comment. I'd love to hear your reactions and your experience. Thank you very much. And for more classes, please go to EkhartYoga.com. I'd love to see you there. Namaste.